What's wrong with a 28mm lens? Because no one seems to make them anymore. Hi guys, my name is Matti Sulanto and I'm a photographer, and I have a small problem. I'd like to buy a 28mm lens, prime autofocus lens for my Sony camera. But it looks like no one is making a 28mm lens anymore. I was looking at the Sony first-party lenses, I was looking at Sigma, Tamron, Samyang, and they have excessive amount of 35mm options and almost excessive amount of 24mm options, and they offer me, all those together offer me two 28mm options. So what is going on? I've been a photographer for a long time, and a 28 has never been my favorite focal length until I started using the GR about 2 years ago. I also in the past I owned a manual focus Nikon AI 28mm f2.8 that I used with my D700 and D800 cameras like 15 years ago or so, but that lens had such a bad curved focus plane that it was almost unusable on a digital camera. That lens was probably fine on a film camera because film is so much more forgiving, but I did not like it on a digital camera and I quickly sold it off. And now I also have the 7 Artisans 28mm f5.6 Leica M mount lens that I really like. It's a super tiny compact lens, and I also have another M mount lens these days, and who knows, maybe one day I'll buy a Leica M. Well, it's not probably going to happen. I'd rather spend that money on something else. But anyway, now I'm drifting. Let's get back to a 28mm lens. Now, after using the GR3 for about 2 years, I really like the 28mm angle of view. I think it's a fantastic all-around lens. It's great for street photography, it's great for environmental portraits, it's great for detail shots, and it's a great all-around lens. In my opinion, a 28 is also the widest angle of view suitable for general photography. Anything wider than that, for me at least, is a special purpose lens for those special wide angle occasions or situations. Back in the day, before digital and before zoom lenses took over, many people had 3 primes in their camera bag. And one very common setup was a 28mm, 50mm and 100mm. And another popular setup was a 24mm, 35mm and 85mm setup. I used to have the latter setup because, as I said before, I never really liked a 28mm equivalent angle of view until I started using this little camera. Today we have high quality zoom lenses, but even today many photographers prefer prime lenses for their small size. The optical quality may be pretty similar on both the primes and zooms if you have a high quality zoom lens, but a prime lens is always a lot smaller and therefore maybe more convenient to carry around. And before I forget, please do leave your opinion on a 28mm lens or equivalent in the comments down below. I'd like to hear that. Earlier in this video I said that there are plenty of 35mm options available and also plenty of 24mm options available for the Sony E-mount. And I was looking at, like I said, I was looking at Sony, Tamron, Sigma, Samyang, and those together, they offer me a whopping 12 different 35mm options and almost whopping 8 24mm options, but only 2 28mm options. And I find that pretty weird because a 25 is nothing special and it used to be a classic focal length back in the day. And even those 2 options that are available, they're pretty two extremes. The Sony version is pretty old design, it's a cheap plastic lens, and I actually used to own one briefly but it was so badly decentered and it left a really bad first impressions, and I returned the lens and never got another copy. And the other 28 option is the Sigma 28mm f1.4, which is great optically, but it's really gigantic and heavy lens, and I would not want that on my Sony because I value compact size and lightweight. The situation is not that much better for Micro Four Thirds either. For example, Olympus/OMDS has never made a 14mm lens for the Micro Four Thirds system, and Panasonic only has one 14mm lens. That is the 14mm f2.5, which is a fine lens for street and fun photography, but it's hardly any kind of a premium lens or professional grade lens. The Nikon Z lens lineup is still pretty modest and not much third-party support yet, but they do have one 28mm f2.8 option, or actually they have two, but I think it's the same lens with just a different exterior design. That lens also is not a pro-grade premium lens, but at least they have one option in their first-party lineup, and I think that is pretty great. Canon RF lineup is a closed system so far, unfortunately. There is a rumor that Canon is going to release a 28mm f1.4, but so far when I'm recording this video, it is only a rumor, and the lineup is so modest at the moment that it's hard to say what Canon is going to do with their lenses. But let's hope they release at least this one 28mm rumored option. For some other systems like Fuji X mount or L mount, there are few other 28mm options, but anyway, it looks to me like today a 28mm angle of view is somehow neglected or rejected. What do you think? Some of you may say that a 28 is kind of an in-between focal length. It's not wide enough and it's not narrow enough, but can't you say the same about a 35? And like I said, there is an excessive amount of 35mm options available, at least for Sony E-mount. And many also say that a 35 is the most boring focal length there is, but still there are so many 35mm options available. And also there are so many 24mm options, and at least my opinion is that a 24 is not nearly as suitable for all kinds of general photography as a 28. So why not 28mm lenses? What's wrong? Why aren't we getting new modern 28mm lens designs? And it's not like a 28 is something weird or a special purpose lens. And also the odd thing is that many of these premium compact cameras have a 28 or 28 equivalent lens, like this Ricoh GR or the Leica Q, Q2, and some Fuji compact cameras as well. So why aren't we getting a 28mm prime lens for our system cameras? And a 28 is also one of the classic focal lengths, like a 35 or 50, for example, or 85. I personally would love to have a 28mm f2.5 Sony G lens to complement my 24, 40 and 50. And come to think of it, 40mm is much more oddball focal length than a 28, but they still decided to make this 40mm before they made a 28mm. I really like these G-series lenses. They are optically great, they have the nicest aperture ring, they have weather sealing, they have excellent build quality. Did I already say that they have great optical quality as well, and compact size, lightweight? What more can you hope for? And they work so well for my photography. And if there was a 28mm option available, I would rush in and buy it right away. It would complement my 40mm nicely, and I would then also get the same equivalent focal lengths for my Sony a7 IV as I have with my Ricoh GR 3 and 3x. That would be really nice. I also think that Sigma definitely should make a 28mm f2 option for their contemporary I-series lens lineup. That would complement the lineup really nicely. And also Tamron, Samyang, please do give us at least one 28mm option. And as always, I'd like to hear your opinion too. Is a 28mm or equivalent angle of view, is it your favorite, and would you buy one if there was one available for your particular system? Please do leave a comment down below. That's all I have for you today, and if you found this video useful or entertaining, please do consider buying me a cup of coffee. There's a link down below for that if you don't live in Finland. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll definitely see you in the next video.